Hello and welcome to Real Hi-Fi Help. In this video, I will be discussing low versus high speaker efficiency. And welcome back. So there is a way of telling how the sound really reacts compared to when you have a low efficiency design versus a high speaker efficiency design. So this is just to give you guys an idea of what's going on in the music, because I've listened to almost all speakers out there, and this is just to kind of give you an understanding of where you want to go, what your direction is sound-wise. So yeah, point number one is that the lower the dB efficiency, the speaker efficiency, generally the more power is needed. And the lower dB efficiency gives a lower overall volume when listening to music. Point two is that around 80 to 90 dB speakers are generally considered low efficiency and hard to drive. But it also depends on ohm stability and some other small factors to get an idea of how efficient the speaker is. So around 92 to 96 dB is pretty efficient, and things at this point start to change a lot. I'm generalizing, but even though I'm generalizing, this is like a rough idea of how speakers are in general. So point three is that you cannot generally connect a tube amplifier to an 80 to 90 dB speaker. This will usually result in a lower volume, meaning also suppressed dynamics and making the music very unstable, especially in regards to releasing the energy in the music, which is extremely difficult. Tube gear on low efficiency speakers, low dB speakers, also give generally an impression that this sound is slightly squashed and boring and in and out of phase, depending on, of course, the traffic in the music and how, your general setup is kind of made to present the music. So the more that is going on in the music, the more power is generally needed. So it could seem as if when you then get some silent passages that the music is almost perfect. But then when things escalate, when a lot more is going on in the music, it can almost sound as if the music is stuck and it has problems getting out of the speakers towards you, sounding actually overly polite. So there are some few speakers, like for example Bob Carver, that run really well on low dB speakers. Bob Carver making tube amplifiers. And then super strong amplifiers like Audionaut Gaku, Maisha Silver Signature, and Otto Silver Signature are like the few exceptions that can still run pretty good at those low dB levels. But just don't misinterpret me, because there's the difference of being able to run them, being able to run them convincingly, and then there's being able to run them so they really shine. So it is a bit difficult, even though they're very powerful, these amplifiers, to make it feel as if you're maxing out the equipment. So, but generally, it's a good idea to run a. It's not a good idea to run a low dB speaker on a Class A piece of tube gear. Just so you guys know that. And very important about the flow of the music on a low and high dB speaker. A low dB speaker has more of a tendency of creating a sense of bandwidth. So this is actually quite important, and one of the reasons for why a low dB speaker is actually sometimes a lot better than the more efficient speakers, because it creates a sound that is more solid and has more detail layering. And very important is that it also has a tendency to be more solid in the bass area, so it sounds more like a correct rendition. Bass will sound more like a solid rock being dropped down. Low dB speakers have a tendency of also being more correct, boring, structurally based in priority, with more focus on the individual details separate. So here the sound is being like pulled up instead of fully released. So I suggest getting a smaller room to keep the sound more alive compared to a higher dB speaker. Well, when we go over to a higher dB speaker, then usually the sound will be more alive, more colorful, more fun, and it will actually be able to convey emotions a lot better and not feel as if the brakes are on. So it will feel as if it's being released and it's going like towards you and sometimes over you. So the sound will then accelerate a lot more than a low dB speaker, almost as if it's being catapulted towards you or coming towards you like a big wave. So again, the flow of the bass is more in the direction of bongo drums when we're dealing with high efficiency speakers. And it can sometimes seem as if it's more about the music and the flow than doing what's correct and what's right. And I do get it then when some people feel as if it then lacks bandwidth, 3D, especially with the cheaper models. So it's understandable. So some higher dB speakers like horns can also be very shouty, closed in, or extremely harsh in sound. And you don't really want most transistor gear on a very high dB speaker in general. I mean, there are exceptions, but that's just in general. Sometimes it can just seem very wrong, as if it's very artificially 2D bright and mismatching in some other kind of way. So it's almost like oil and water. They don't really mix well together. But there are exceptions. Higher dB speakers release a lot more energy, and you will feel small tweaks in your system a lot more compared to the low dB speakers, because the low dB speakers generally don't react nearly as much. So I mean, it just to let you guys know that you could be testing some things, and because it's on a low dB speaker, it can sometimes be a bit difficult to register those changes. Just to let you guys know. That took me a long time to realize. But actually my recommendations is to have one of each type of setup. So I personally have audio notes set up with audio note speaker, amp, DAC, and so on. That's like one really good direction to go in, but I also suggest going with some more regular gear with a lower dB speaker, probably around 90 dB, and then having some really good equipment, transistor gear that's like Spectral, Negra, Griffin, D'Agostino, or something like YBA signature models or something like that. Then you have the two opposite worlds, which are very good in their own complete different ways. So but just realize that when you're going for the low dB speakers, it's more of a thinking type of sound focused on individual details and bits and pieces, where the higher dB speaker is more focused around the feel of the music and the emotional part and the realness, the liveness. So, but take everything that I've said with a grain of salt. This is just the general state of how things are in hi-fi, not always the case for some few products. And there's also like the interaction aspect with all the other gear that you have. So you also have to take that into consideration. So But I kind of find it a pity that you can't try some of the best tube amplifiers on low dB speakers. This could possibly be very very interesting. I would like to try a triode amplifier, for example, on a Martin Design Bird 1 speaker. That would be very cool if it would work power wise, but I know power wise it doesn't work very well, so that's a bit of a pity. But I also have to mention that if you have a low watt tube amplifier on a low watt dB speaker, you can cheat with going with some power cables that aren't the standard length. If you go from the standard 2 meter length over to something that's half or a whole meter, it will actually be able to transfer more energy to the speaker, from the amplifier to the speaker. So that's one tip for you guys for actually getting squeezing a lot more of that potential out of your amplifier, and like converting that energy over to your speaker. That's a very good tip for you guys. So yeah, that's everything in this video. So remember to like and subscribe, and yeah, show some of my videos to your friends, because I have some pretty neat information in those videos. Also remember to check out like ranking of gear to see how I rank all the gear that's on the market, to give you guys an idea of what's good and what's bad. It's of course my opinion. Your own opinion could vary, but it's just to let you guys know how I think the market stands the way it is here in 2020, and having listened to a lot of gear the past, I don't know, 20-25 years time. So that's all for today, and yeah, have a nice day. Bye.